Interesting. What's interesting to me is, okay, so when I talk about the research that I did for my book, a lot of people say to me, well, can we create a system in which you can calculate woofie? As my book's called The Woofie Factor. It's a fun word for social capital that Cory Doctorow came up with for a book. But can we calculate, why can't we calculate social capital and start making it more tangible, right? And I think your non-fungible, fungible comment is interesting on that level. And I can see maybe how we can start to measure what's between here and here knowledge-wise a little bit, although value gets a little fuzzy, but when it comes to like reputation and trust and that becomes, because yours and my relationship is very different than, let's say, Kathy and my relationship. So we have very differential ways of, very different ways of like trusting, different levels of trust and stuff.
So what I'm talking about is very complicated, but in fact it's very simple, and the examples are these two people. What I'm doing is I'm just describing what they're doing. It's like the story of the architect who put the university campus but didn't put any sidewalks down, and the college university professor says, put the sidewalks there, and the architect said no. After a semester, the students had worn paths. That's where he put the sidewalks. So that's kind of where I'm telling you, this is where we put the sidewalk, because this is where the people are already walking. It's complex on my side, but it's very simple, because they're doing it all day long. Did that?
No, I'm just.
No, I was actually going to try to make it a little more real again by positing a different. So something we considered a long time ago and that we're actually revisiting now, although we probably won't see it until the end of the year, is the idea of actually creating a market for participation points. One of the keys in our global to local structure is actually that people come out and run a meeting, or that they write a blog post, or they shoot the video of the meeting and share it online. And there's certain values that we can assign really in kind of a Foursquare social gaming sort of environment here as well. And we can actually reward members of our community with these participation points for everything they contribute. And as a result of that, we could conceivably convert that to monetary value and provide rewards and other things out of it. But I just know, based on, I talked to Mullenweg about this a lot as well, as soon as we introduce money into that equation, people's motivations shift. Yeah. So it would in fact pollute the stream if we were to do a money exchange for these participation points. But if we did other ways to provide status or other forms of currency with social capital, we could do more with that. And Raines is about to jump out of his seat, so we better.
It's points, and like currency, it's about commoditization. It's about making it value, measurable, transferable, and so forth. But in the communities that I live in and work in, it's people's unique contributions. It's not that everybody's doing the same thing. It's that like it's my turn to sweep the floor in the co-working space today, but that I do something unusual and different that only I could do, that somebody else then appreciates and gets inspired and does their thing. And that's what really builds the community and really pulls it together. So
because you're in an economic system which rewards you for doing exactly what you want to do and what you're good at. We don't have that now.
That's what we look to replicate. And so less by points and more by how do we embrace diversity in that sense and foster that uniqueness, and you give people more choices.
Well, so the problem with that, though, I see, and maybe you can answer this for me, is in that diversity, we have human beings as part of this. So at the end of the day, somebody sweeping the floor and then somebody writing a poem, like people might sit back and go, he thinks he can write poems and get away, and we're like breaking our backs sweeping the floor. That's not the same value.
Not only that, but it was Vogon poetry.
Yeah, so how does that work within the
in co-working, we sit down and we say, okay, you must be this tall, you must pay this many dollars to get in the door, and the extra stuff is layered on top of that. So get past the lowest levels of the hierarchy of needs, and you're into much more discretion and choice because it's voluntary. It's stuff that adds to it but isn't required.
We did a research project at Boeing on that subject. We put 5 mechanical engineers in a room and we said, build a better mousetrap. They came up with a better shingle, a better spring, and a better whacker. We put 5 people in a room. One was an administrator, the other one was an artist, the other one was a scientist, the other one was an engineer, and somebody from the attorney's office. They came up with the most ingenious mousetrap we've ever seen. It was just brilliant. So the poet doesn't necessarily add value in poetry, rather in the diversity of that knowledge inventory.
Well, and you know, personally, I value poets very highly.
Which is actually,
I'm just saying that some people.
which is actually a form of knowledge DNA. I mean, you can look at, we can talk about social chemistry here largely as well as another part of the intangible.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, that gets down to the individual situation and the four of us sitting here and who each of us are. So to look at that on a market scale is very difficult. It's still contest.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, there was a question back there first.
Well, just I find myself a little bit in the devil's advocate role here at this conference many times, but maybe a little bit here too, although I didn't expect it in this particular setting. But there's a discussion here that the topic is non-quantifiable exchanges.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a differential equation that quantifies. So competition, that doesn't work for me.
Applause from the peanut gallery.
So that's just one comment or objection. Tara, I love your book, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
But here's the thing, I just, it's kind of related to this quantification. So I'm doing a startup here in the Valley, but I just went on a trip, okay? I went down to Jamaica, and long story, I started to meet a bunch of entrepreneurs down there. I got stranded in the airport for 5 hours, I'm hanging out with cab drivers, and started talking to people. Incredible set of entrepreneurial people in this country, not being utilized, right? So I started connecting with them, and I've been doing this for a few weeks since I went down there. Started to connect with people here and there. There's web developers down there, mobile developers, all kinds of very smart people, not connecting here. If I had focused on converting, or if I was focusing right now on converting that into money somehow, okay, I'd stop immediately.
Yeah.
I'm doing what I'm doing. There's no money in it that I can foresee anytime. I mean, maybe someday, I don't know. But if I focused on that, a conversion from this non-quantifiable thing into a quantifiable thing, if that was something I thought about, I would stop, right? There's no money in it that I can foresee. So I'm just a little concerned that what we're going to do is stop people from doing the kind of things that I'm doing, just because I want to. I'm lucky enough to be free to do that at this moment. But you know, and you don't have to be rich. I'm not a rich person. It's not like that. I'm just doing it anyway. And if I focus on quantifying it, turning it into money, I don't see the same chemistry happening that's happening for me with this crazy idea I had.
Well, then it's the idea, like you go to a networking event, and who do you like to talk to more at that networking event? The person that comes up to you, business card in hand, ready to pitch you, because they need to convert that relationship instantly into a sale, or the person that you like end up by the coffee maker talking about all the sales guys that are there and how you're uncomfortable, and then you start talking about golf or your kids or whatever that's going on. You want to talk to that second person, right? That doesn't want to convert that relationship instantly into cash.
That's been one of my favorite stories, just a personal story. One of my best business deals I ever did was in a ladies' restroom.
I'm not gonna ask.
No, but seriously, that's how it happened.
It wasn't in Reno, was it? Okay, good.
You know, you never know. And I just was hanging out there, and there was a line, and then someone said, "Hey, why don't you use this one?" And then we developed a business relationship that lasted several years and produced millions of dollars in revenue for the two companies.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's preparedness meeting opportunity, right, as well. So, I mean, there's a lot to it. And I think, I understand your concern. In fact, when you first started talking to me about the algorithms, the other stuff, I'm like, I completely disagree with you. And after it really sank in a little bit more and I was understanding what the goal was, you know, he's applying a lot of technical and management talk to this very human thing. And what it is that there are people who are driven by numbers and people who are driven by stories. And their decision making is based on one of these two factors. So if we're to convert more people from traditional financial market thinking into accepting the value of intangibles, we're going to need to quantify it in order to gain greater acceptance for it. So I'm with you. I'm more on the human level of, you know, you got to see past that spreadsheet and see the humans who are being affected by the decisions you're making to maximize your profitability here and understand these other components. But at the same time, having somebody out working on trying to quantify it, I think is very good for it.